All right, today I'm going to introduce assignment 3. And just to remind you, all assignments have assignment sheets, just brief one-page summaries of what's required in the course modules. And so we just finished our collage creature. We've already done our fantasy landscape. This one is about bringing them together. And you can do a preview within the window of your assignment sheet with this icon, but if you just click on it, it will download as a PDF. You can print it anywhere. So here, we want an output no larger than 13 by 19 inch. At around at least 300 ppi and a minimum of 8 by 10 inch. And the problem is we need to have assignment 2 and assignment 1 in order to do this project fully, because we are combining the two into what I call a Creaturescape. This is kind of the biggest tip. You can be creative in how you integrate your creature, but it needs to be in focus. You know, you can't put it so far back in the atmosphere that it's just a blurry cloud and say that it's there. We need it to be a focal point of the composition, and it should help the composition of the whole image, not distract from it, right? So we're not trying to hide our creature into a landscape. We're trying to feature our creature with a landscape around it. So we can always go to the past student examples and see how other students have managed this. And there's a wide variety of solutions because our creatures don't always match our landscapes. So this was kind of a dragon space creature, or maybe even just a water creature, just a weird flying creature that here becomes this space creature hidden behind lots of atmosphere and actually shown destroying this planet, you know, sucking the energy from this planet. This one is this huge bison creature which they played with the scale to make it mountain-sized, and that works well as a main focal point of this landscape. Here we have something a little bit more typical with a foreground, a middle ground, and a background, and the creature is in the background. It kind of shows the scale again. Here we have the creature in the foreground, in the deep shadow of these caves, just catching light as it enters into this kind of entrance tunnel. Here we have the creature in the extreme foreground, you know, in sharp focus. And this makes us kind of question the scale a little bit. There's nothing to tell us what scale it is. And so on and so on. Notice that in order to integrate your creature, you need it to kind of fit the lighting. See how the shadow here is set to match the lighting and to show that it's off the ground. It needs to match the general color temperature and the general focus. So this is a very bright and in focus landscape. So the creature has to be pretty sharp and in focus. It also needs to transition with the land, right? So if it is touching the ground, sometimes we have to get creative about how that makes sense. And we can use texture fills and things to cover it. We need to match the atmosphere and the lighting and the feel of it. So all of these students had different challenges. Here, this is limited just by its use of the original design. So the creature design was kind of heavily based on an animated design, and so its lighting is set, its posture is set, and the background is kind of this hodgepodge of different composited elements that look more like stickers than a believable landscape. But the integration is actually handled well with the lighting and the shadow underneath, and even the attempt to put kind of a shadow. Maybe that's a skateboard. I don't know. But even if the different aspects, the character and the background, have their flaws, your integration can still be well executed for this project. Now, the very best, it's just going to feel natural. You know, the lighting will work, the shading will work, the integration will work, and we can definitely bring in new elements as well. Now, this is pushing it in terms of kind of size. Such a small creature feels a little bit hidden in the landscape, but does affect the composition enough to be featured. And once you notice it, it has to hold up. So having it integrate with the grass can be a challenge, with sand, with the coloring, you know, with water and reflections. These are all things we're going to have to deal with. And that's part of the fun of it. So it might seem simple to just put your creature into a fantasy landscape, but there's a lot of kind of careful attention we'll pay to it. Because remember, it's only going to be as strong as your creature design is strong. And if you don't integrate it well, it just won't be very engaging, right? But if you do integrate it well, then you can play with scale and play with position and have a lot of creativity that just one element alone won't give you. All right. So how do we go about this? Well, we start, of course, by really doing as much as we can to perfect our assignment 1 and assignment 2. And we're going to be using the PSDs of both of them. So first I'm going to open up my PSD, my full Photoshop file for assignment 1. And I'm going to open up my finished PSD for assignment 2. So I have both of these open, and there's a big difference between them. My Photoshop assignment should have all its backgrounds turned off. So it's just free floating and yet combined all onto one layer. And then my fantasy landscape, it might have these different layers that I combined at the end with texture fills. But ultimately, I also want access to all of the individual parts of it, so I can stick my character behind the foreground, for instance. And I'll probably dial back some of that atmosphere and texture in order to execute this the way I want. So what you do is you take assignment 2, it's merged all together on one layer at the top here, and then you just drag and drop it onto assignment 1. And notice, because these are both print scale, you are going to need to shrink your creature probably quite a bit to make it fit into the print scale of your landscape. But you still want this at high enough resolution. So I'm just going to drop him in right here for now. Hit return, place him. He's marked red. That makes it easy to find him, right? And then I want to check my image size and make sure I'm at 350 pixels per inch at a printable size. And I am. All right. So now, how do I go about integrating this guy into this landscape? Well, I have a lot of things that are already kind of pointing to the right in this landscape. So if I just kind of place him around, he doesn't maybe stand out as much as I would like. So the first thing I might do is decide to flip him. And I can treat this now like any other layer. And I can say Command T to transform him, and then right click and then flip horizontal. And yeah, now that's beginning to have a little bit more presence in this landscape. I think I want him to kind of fit between this rock and this rock. And maybe I want to rotate him a little bit. So Command T, rotate him up. Maybe I want to shrink him a little bit more. So Command T, hold down Shift. So I'm trying to find the position that makes sense for him. He might be hugging this rock a little. This might be an option, where just his claw is coming over it. And so he's a little foreground creature. Okay, then zoom in on him a little bit. Look how sharp he is compared to all of this texture. So I could turn off some of my texture fills, which would probably be a good idea for now, to help integrate him. And actually this looks pretty cool without the texture fills. I might have overdone those. But I can see the lighting a little bit more clearly now. I can also just move him behind the texture fills and then turn them back on. And just because he's now behind that first texture fill, that's even starting to help a little bit. And this is where I'll make some different decisions about the storm in the background and what's seen and what's not seen. And how much texture I use. I might even alter it pretty significantly by erasing away parts of texture fills I had before in certain areas. That planet's too strong that way. Let's see. Okay. So I haven't really done anything except position it and then layer it behind some of the textures. Then, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. I'm going to duplicate certain elements that I think might overlap my creature. So if I think that this rock might overlap him, I'm not sure. I want to find that rock, select it. It's on this layer. Broadly select around it, like so. And then Command J, duplicate it, and then move it up above my creature. I'll turn these off for now, just so I can see everything clearly. And that gives me the option, if I wanted to hide him behind, I could just erase away. It's like a prop. This is very much like staging. We're putting our characters on the stage. The landscape is our set. And it's up to us to make the lighting, the coloring, the atmosphere, the costume, the effects all match. So I can make him pretty believably behind it, but even if I have him in front, I like to have that rock as its own element, because then I can adjust its levels and its colors separately than everything behind it. And because my character is so bright, it would make sense that I'd want it to be a little bit brighter in the foreground. Maybe even a little bit sharper. Okay, so what else is needed when you're thinking about integrating a character? Of course, it's only as strong as the elements you have, but yeah, it's going to cast a shadow. And luckily, my lighting already kind of matches, right? Lighting kind of coming through this channel here, and more shadow on the dark side. I might need to burn the back a little bit. Definitely burn under his feet a little bit more, kind of double up that shadow that's on the back end of the rock. This might cast a shadow right here. His head might cast a shadow here. This feels like it needs to get darker or somehow show up a little bit more. I can adjust the overall coloring. Just using color balance, making it fit in. It really depends on what your landscape is. I feel like my coloring's pretty close, but I'll give it a little bit more reds. A bit more yellow in the highlights. And it's this careful game where you want it to match, but you also want it to stand out. And so let's see if those color adjustments made a difference. Yeah, they did. They helped a little bit. Also, this part of the rock, this gash in the rock, is becoming, it's a little confusing. So I might have to alter my background design a little bit. And I notice little flaws in my composite. So this is a great opportunity for me to also fix my landscape and make